Hey, welcome back to the X Podcast. Sitting here at the long table with Tim Moore. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
Doing all right.
Sunny?
Sun is out.
70 degrees, sunny. Come on, this is a gift.
I'm just going to throw this out there, and if people critique this as a brag, then I will endeavor to be misunderstood. But I, as of this recording on Wednesday, I've run 20 miles so far this week.
Wow.
And
that is a
feels
straight humble brag.
I mean, but it's as the sun is like it's solar power. I'm solar powered, baby. And it feels
it does feel amazing outside.
Amazing. And yeah, what are you doing? Well, you never get in the sun. You honestly are very vampiric.
Vampiric.
I noticed that back in Lancaster days.
Yeah.
You are able to hang upside down in the dark all day long and not feel any emotional effects of it as you tinker away at your projects.
Yeah, that's one way to put that, I guess.
How do you like my description?
Yes, well, my vampiric tendencies. Mm-hmm. I don't do that by choice. I do that.
You've not bitten anyone's neck in a while, though.
I do that out of responsibility.
Not choice. Oh, okay.
I have things to do and work on.
You moralized your choices to never get out and enjoy the sun or walk around or have lunch
or be responsible.
Okay.
Yes, I did.
That's being responsible.
Yeah, it's being responsible.
Do those things.
Okay. Being responsible. I have plenty to do, but it is I went out today to meet someone for a lunch appointment, and he was on the phone, and I said, "No rush. I'm just standing right here in the sun," and it felt
so
really
irresponsible.
Good.
You got out and lived life and had lunch.
I did. It was amazing.
What an irresponsible reprobate.
So great. Yep. I'm paying for it now. So
okay.
But no, it's beautiful. Love it. Mm-hmm. My wife is a different person.
As in,
she's literally a different person.
Oh, like right now she feels like a different person because of the sun.
She literally is a different person.
I get that.
The warmth and the sun. She's literally. Mm-hmm. She called me the other day. When she left, she goes like, I don't know how to describe it to you. But I literally feel, she didn't say these words, but like 5 points happier on the happy scale.
Mm-hmm. It's a reset.
So
that vitamin D.
So hopefully this is a little bit of a taste and of more to come.
Hopefully it's not that, what do they call it, Ohio, the false spring?
I don't know. I didn't know we even had one of those. But if this is it, I don't know. We'll just take it. So it's beautiful out.
False hope is better than no hope.
Yeah, I agree. Got to have hope. So it's gorgeous out.
We went to what would be the land of sun.
We went to a sunny state, and it was miserably cold and rainy.
But y'all, I feel like y'all were a little bit dramatic about it. It was colder than you would think it would be in L.A. in March. But sun was out, and it was in the upper 60s.
One day.
Yeah, well, we were only there 2 days.
One day. We flew in on Wednesday. We left on Saturday, and the sun was out one day. And it barely got up to 60. That's not what most people imagine when they think of sunny LA.
It's true.
And you know what's funny is like 2 of the last 3 times I've gone there, the weather has not been ideal. And so we were at dinner the second night we were there with the group that we were with, and the one lady there, Kim, she was just telling me, she was like, it rains like 3 times a year. I said, well, every time I come, it rains. Yeah. And she was like, this is crazy. It was cold and rainy, and we were supposed to be going to an outdoor dinner on that Thursday night, 50-some degrees and rain, even though it was covered. Thankfully, it got moved indoors. Yeah. Because that would have been rough.
It was a really special time.
Yeah.
Out in L.A., and a lot of memories, beautiful connection, beautiful food. It was fun watching you at one of the dinners.
Yeah.
It was a tasting menu.
Yeah, it was amazing.
You didn't taste much of the menu.
The escargot was fantastic. And
our guest threw out some epic lines where he said, "Are you not men?"
Yeah. What was that quote from? What movie is that?
I don't know. I feel like there are multiple lines he said that. I'm like, is that a quote from a movie or just you?
No, I think it's a quote from a movie. I'm pretty sure. And I think he also said it to the largest man at our table.
Yeah. Oh, and then
who was just built like a rock.
And then at the end, one of my other favorite lines was, "I will excuse if the pasta's not eaten, but not the steak. A cow gave his life for you. Honor it."
I had eaten a lot of the steak. I just want to point out, I was one of the first ones and grabbed quite a bit of the steak, and it was very good. That was funny. So we had a good time.
It was really special.
Yeah.
And Pastor Trey was there. Yeah. The 3 of us got to see Venice and see some of the sights around Los Angeles, one of my favorite cities in the entire world. And yeah, there's a lot of special things there. But, you know, the last time we were there, I don't know, what was it? October of 2024. And you, Kevin, and myself, we did a podcast where we debriefed a talk from Brendon Burchard, believe rated the #1 performance coach in the world. And then since then, I read actually one of his books, not his like high performance habits books, which I still need to read, but I read his book that really was just kind of the catalyst off of his life, his near-death experience. I think you would technically call it a fable, but it's called Life's Golden Ticket. And so I read that.
Oh, I didn't see that one. That wasn't the one they gave out.
No, they gave out his like high performance habits, like an encyclopedia of just, you know. But this is like you enjoyed this. It's like a smaller book, and it's written like fiction, but has all these lessons in it.
Oh, that's cool.
Really moving.
Really.
And at the very end, I thought this was very creative. At the very end, there's an envelope, and at the beginning of the book, he says, "Do not open this until the end." So you have to finish the book, and then you open the envelope.
Are you gonna ruin it for anybody that wants to?
I'm not gonna say what it says.
Okay.
There's a ticket inside.
I figured it was a golden ticket.
It's like a golden ticket.
Yeah.
And then it says something on the front and the back, and it
says you get free entrance to the Willy Wonka chocolate factory.
But that would have been actually a sabotage to the book. But it was really cool. But anyways, so you know, this time around, really, some of what we went out there for was a conference. This time around, when we went before, it was the arena conference. I don't know. 10 to 14 different speakers. 2 days. This is a one-day event. And it's the second one they've done like this, which is Brendon Burchard has really connected with Erwin McManus. And the two of them, they do an entire day conference. It's 2 hours of one of them teaching, 2 hours, the other one teaching. You break for lunch, you come back, your brain's mush, but they have a conversation, Q&A, all the things. And last time we thought it was meaningful to break down one of the talks. And I just thought, you know, Brendon's talk in October was so transcendent and life-changing for me. I went back and I've listened to it like 3 times. And there's stuff from that I still think about almost every day. This one was a little bit more tactical, I think because of the point of the conference. And he broke down 5 protocols of productivity and, you know.
Progress, I think.
Progress,
right?
Progress.
Yeah, I think it was progress.
Was it?
Yeah, it's 5.
Oh, because it's progress mode.
Yeah, it's 5 protocols for progress mode. Yeah,
5 protocols for progress mode. So there we go.
It's kind of similar, though. It was kind of about productivity, but some of them were.
Yeah.
But the whole idea, I think, was just about how do you get, I want to say even this way, how do you get momentum?
Yep.
Or how do you kind of move the ball in your life, whether it's your job, your career. I mean, I think you can apply any of them to kind of where you are. And he's a bit of a motivational speaker.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like somebody who gives you something to like get you fired up and go, let's go tackle the world.
Yeah, but I think one of the things we talked about, if you're listening to this and you've not listened to the October one, I'm sure you're busy, but I would encourage you to go back and listen to it, because one of the things we talked about from him that's so surprising is he comes out in the style of a Tony Robbins.
Well, I found out that he worked with Tony Robbins for a long time, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's that same vein.
Yeah.
But the moment he starts digging in, gets into your soul, and it's just therapeutic, it's like healing, it's deep, it's textured, but he flows back and forth between that and like just super practical productivity hacks. And it's very interesting. He's very, in the words of Erwin, he's just so comprehensive in the midst of a talk, and going back and forth between healer, commander, challenger, therapist, and practitioner and coach, and it's very fascinating how he does it.
You thought about his. What do you? I know this wasn't the direction we're talking about going for this, but I'm curious. Like, what do you think makes his version of communication effective?
I think there are some I think there's a transcendent answer to that, and then I think there's some practical.
Okay.
So the transcendent answer, and I think this is some of what we talked about, for me, is I think it's really rare that you see someone that the moment you watch them or you get around them, you can see in their eyes that they're fully alive. And he's one of those people that his eyes are clear and bright and sharp, and you can just tell this person's it's a work of art to see someone that is truly comfortable in their own skin, that is truly alive, fully on fire, and and you're watching him tell a story that changed his life, a near-death experience, and you're watching him, even though he's told it for 30 years, 10,000 times probably, that he's still crying as he tells it. And you can feel the empathy. Mm-hmm. You can feel the human experience as he's talking that just gets in you. I think connected to the transcendence, practically, though, I've heard him talk about this, is he always thinks about the different people in the room. He thinks about the people that are the high performers that just need a shot of adrenaline, shot of get back up. Mm-hmm. But he also thinks about the people in the room that he knows are in that room that are dispirited and discouraged and broken. Mm-hmm. And he thinks about and everything in between. Yeah. And so I think he thinks about that and he speaks to that in a really human, effective way. Mm-hmm. And I think, Erwin put it best. He finds this way of going back and forth between these powerful frequencies in a really elegant way, where he's extremely therapeutic and you're crying, except for you, and you don't know why. But then right as you're beginning to cry, he's challenging you, but you got more in you. And you're not bringing your best anymore. Mm-hmm. And it's been forever since you felt the day and you've really brought everything you need to bring. And you've been there and you've led your team the way you need to lead them. And then as he's challenging you, he's starting to give you tool. He goes into professor mode. He's very bookish. He's read a book a week, since for the last 30 years. Mm-hmm. And so he's going. So I just think it's the combination that you have somebody that he sounds maybe a little bit crude, but they used to say you can tell that he's smoking what he's selling, and he's fully alive. Yeah. But then he just has all of these different ways he's connecting to you where you're at. He's a productivity person who's speaking to you at a human level. Mm-hmm. And he is taking, even though this one was way more productivity related, he spoke at a human level to the heart for a while before he got to the really, really practical. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes all the difference.
Yeah, that's good.
Heart before hands, right?
Yeah. He did. He's a great communicator. It's just interesting to.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I was just curious if what you thought was, his communication style is it's not just in like his ability to stand in front of a room, but just more of how he thinks. And it's interesting. Yeah. I think he does actually bridge a couple different. I think he bridges not only a couple different frequencies when he's speaking, but I think he's good at taking, because it's like you go back and look through his points from this talk and this, I'd say they're not that revolutionary. Mm-hmm. Like if you just look at each of them, they're not like, wow, that was the most, I've never heard that before. Mm-hmm. Most of them are all things that none of we've heard before, but many of them are things that we practice or we've said before.
Yes.
And so I think the key or connection that he makes with people is that he can take what is the information or what is a concept, and he has a way to humanize it to a level that it reaches what you feel, not just what you're thinking.
I also think he carries an unusual, as weird as it sounds, because you don't think about this when you think about Brendon Burchard, because he's so dorky and accessible and humble, but he carries an authority that's unusual, and I think he carries a dual authority. I think he carries the authority of authenticity. Mm-hmm. He almost died. He turned his life around. You can tell it's real in his life. But he also carries the authority, and sometimes he reminds you of this, that he is the number one performance coach in the world, and he's spent time with all the presidents, all the top athletes and Olympians, all the top CEOs, and they pay him millions of dollars, and if they don't get results, like real life results. So I think you have this authority of a guy who he speaks in therapy speak, but he has his own take on it. And even though it is stuff, not all of it's brand new, like you said, not all of it's paradigm shattering, but some of it is countercultural to what certain like psychological circles would say nowadays. But you can tell, like, he's telling you what actually works. Mm-hmm. He's telling you what actually works for performers, for athletes, for even in hospice. I love that. He doesn't just spend time with the Fortune 500. He spends time in hospice. And he's like, I can tell you at the end of your life what you will ask that will matter to you. Yeah. So I just think there's this comprehensive authority of what he's bringing to you that you know it's real.
Yeah.
And but anyways, he brought out 5 protocols, and don't want to, give away all of Hezekiah's treasures on a podcast that people paid to go see. But, one that stood out to me was, and it was number 2 protocol. It was dump old stories. Mm-hmm. Dump the old stories that hold you back. And there's a lot to that.
Mm-hmm.
There is, the whole idea. He says, I'll tell you when the old story surface is whenever you try to make progress.
Yeah.
The old stories of, I tried that before and I failed.
Yep.
I've tried to change and it only lasted so long.
Mm-hmm.
I went for that and my heart was broken. I want to be a new person, but I keep reverting to the old.
Mm.
And there's so much back, and it really goes, a lot of it, he kind of ended up going into, cognitive behavioral therapy a little bit of, it's the stories you tell yourself.
Yeah.
And it's what you do. And he had this one line, I love this. He says, old stories really is you saying, what if?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if I do this and it fails? What if? And, the powerful pivot point he gave is to change your what if with what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you're like, well, what if this fails? Say, what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
And even now, like, what is it now that's open for me? Was his line.
Mm-hmm.
What is it now that's open for me? What do I want? And so I'm curious how that stood out to you. It's weird listening to it. I have conflicting feelings in me because, I've thought about this a lot more lately because of one of my writing projects, but I feel like I'm I'm a weird place internally in my personality structure.
You live in the old stories.
No, well,
in that regard.
Well,
what?
So
You're kind of nostalgic. Is all I'm saying.
Well, I'm not kind of.
Okay, you're very nostalgic. But I'm just saying but that would be a thing for you.
Yes.
I'm saying the more nostalgic you are, I probably imagine, and I'm not saying this is projecting this on you, but I would say in general, the more nostalgic you are, potentially, the more difficult this could be for you.
Extremely.
To dump an old story because you live in the old stories, good and bad.
Yeah. Well, here's what I was going to say. Here's where, and this is not like poor old me, self-pity, but this is where, in the words of Ian Cron, who has repopularized the Enneagram, the toughest place emotionally to be on the Enneagram is stuck between a 3 and a 4 because you live in the future and the past, so rarely the present. I am highly futuristic. I'm highly vision driven. I'm highly vision focused. So I am always thinking out there. I'm always casting vision. I'm very, very driven. And I am incredibly nostalgic and sentimental. And so I find myself living in the past and the future, but never the present. and it can be a really...
You know what? I can imagine...
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. When I think about you, I think that's true. And I think, the challenge for somebody who probably feels stuck or is a 3.5 on the Enneagram is that the challenge is for someone like that is, can they ever be happy in the present?
Yeah. I'll let you know if I...
Well, I can imagine that's a little bit of, I'm more of a 3.025 in the fact that I
just think you're 3,000.
In the fact that I'm just saying you're applying 4 as the nostalgic part, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The problem is going to a 2 doesn't move you toward the future.
Right.
So 3 is the future, then it's probably just a dead on 3 or something. But it's, that's the whole idea of like allowing your past to really hold you back from, I think the whole idea of what he was saying at this point of even like, to me, it was almost about risk. It was about faith. It was about taking a step.
Yeah.
It was like taking a leap. And it is so true. I mean, I remember him talking about this and kind of the way it sat with me. And I was thinking about certain things that I'm processing right now, things that I'm thinking about doing, other different things. And, the way it was kind of hitting me is, what is holding me back from trying to do those things? And if I'm honest, it probably is an inner narrative more than it is an external roadblock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's certain aspects of things that I go, I'd love to do that. And that's kind of like, well, why don't you?
Yeah. It's so weird. Because I don't know if you relate to this. I mean, again, if you're not close to me relationally and you were to watch my life, you may not would think I struggle with the past because I've moved 4 or 5 times. I've moved to different continents. I've, I love trying new things. I'll write on new books. This past week I finished up a brand new, a writing course where I just took a leap of faith. And so I don't really have much issue taking risks, I don't think, and trying new things and going for it, and but internally, especially in certain areas of my life, like my heart and my emotions and my soul is really connected to the past, which is the more I'm studying for this writing project, there's good and bad. There's really good and bad connected to that. But I think as I was thinking about this, I'm like, the tough part is the past is your only reference point. I think that's why it's tough. That's your only reference point.
Sure.
Because when you think about, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to tell myself a new story. I'm stuck in old stories. Well, currently, from a concrete standpoint, my old stories are all I have.
Yeah.
So
I'm just daydreaming at that point.
Yeah.
That's what vision is.
Yeah.
Telling a new story.
Yeah.
Right? It's telling a story that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And what keeps us from there. And I just think, too, the way I think as we're talking about this one, because it resonated with us, and like, how can people even process this? Because I think that's not always like, oh, you want to quit your job and start your own business, or oh, you want to do this. I think it's almost just anything in your life where you see or have a desire to move in that direction, but something holds you back.
Yeah.
Something trips you up every time. And, most of the time it is related to, as you were talking about, these what ifs, where you fill in the blank. What if I fail? What if people think, what if I look like an idiot? What if I embarrass myself? What if nobody says yes? What if, all of those narratives. And the point he made, okay, is that element of, shall I say, I don't know what's the word for it because it's not dreaming, but of every time you have a what if with a negative story, it comes from somewhere.
Yes.
That was the point. He said every time you do that, it actually pings back to a real moment in your life where something didn't work.
Right.
Something you spoke up in class in 6th grade and you said something wrong and everybody laughed. Or there was somebody in your life that rejected you. You asked somebody if you could go work for them and they said, no, you're not what I'm looking for.
Yep.
All it has is one of those kind of moments. Those become markers inside of us that whenever we have an opportunity or we feel pulled to do something new, we immediately ping back. And it's the only thing we have to go back to.
Yep.
And I remember that part just very clearly because I think sometimes we think that what if rumination is I want to say it this way, is only rooted in fear. I know he didn't say it that way. I'll say it that way. I think a lot of times we think what if rumination is rooted in fear when reality it's actually grounded in reality. Or I should say it's actually grounded in something that happened once. Doesn't mean it's going to again.
Right.
But that's all you have is to pull back up.
Yep.
And that's kind of where the fear is for moving forward. And then he talked about just how rumination is one of the key things, psychological things, that actually leads to depression.
It really is.
It is. Like what happens first is you just begin to retell a story over and over again. And when you retell that story long enough, and that's a psychological concept that has been termed, rumination and what you do in your mind, that is going to cause you to spiral down to a dark place. Or
it's like that. I think it's very connected to the word meditate. I heard someone talk about, like in Psalm 1, it says, those who meditate on his word day and night. It's like, what does meditate mean? Really, it's just talking about, like, the image, really, that they would have seen is like a cow chewing its cud. It's just chewing it all day long. And I heard the best description I've ever heard of meditating on God's word is just chewing on it all day long, rolling it over and over and over in your mind all day long. But the negative inverse of that is rumination. And I can be bad at that. If something's really stuck in my mind, I can ruminate. And it leads to like anxiety. It leads to fear. It leads to depression. It's a dark thing.
paralysis.
It really does. And I wrote down what he said because I thought it was so true. He said most of the time when we do that and we don't dump old stories, it becomes a downward spiral of old story situations and people. And you ruminate. Rumination leads to depression. And he said, really, it's just a share of thought allocation. Am I pinging it forward or backwards? Because we all would hear, well, your past doesn't have to define your future. Like, whatever you've been through, that doesn't have to define your future. And that sounds amazing. But the battle of whether you're going to actually live that out is in your mind, in the moment-to-moment things. When something happens, is my story. I put the example in the confidence book. Let's say I screwed up last night. I could say, I could use pervasive language. Oh, I'm a screw up. I'm horrible. I'm never going to get better. Or, oh, I didn't express the best version of myself. I'm going to take responsibility and move forward. My future's so bright.
Yeah.
Like, which one of those stories I choose will determine who I become inside, what story I live out, the emotional health of my soul. And it's almost like having an awareness of what story am I living in.
Yeah. I think too, one of the things that this talk kind of like spoke to me about, or even this portion, especially kind of the part that really made me pause for a moment, was the idea of, because I thought where he was going with this, right? Because I've used it before in preaching. We have all these what ifs. Mm-hmm. What if this, what if this, what if this? And what if is rooted as much in fear, but also it's the same kind of phrase that is used with faith. It's the same thing, right? What
that's
if?
What I thought
that's
why
I was going to go to. No, you need to replace the negative, and I think he probably did it on purpose and drawing a line. I thought he was going to say, you need to actually dream like, what if this happens?
What if it does go well?
What if she says yes? What if you, right? And he didn't. And he twisted it, for me at least, because I preached that and I thought that's where it was going. And it wasn't, right? And so instead he said, you need to ask this question, what do I want? Mm-hmm. What do I want? Or what I want is ... right?
Yep.
And when he said that, like, I don't know, again, sometimes this is sitting in a room and you're receiving it all. It just kind of like sparked something in me that what I found is that pinging back in the fear, it really is kind of a shackle for your mind to the point where you never give yourself permission to say, I want to build that. Mm-hmm. I want to go do this. Mm-hmm. I want to create that. Mm-hmm. I want to be this.
So what are some of the things you realize you want from this conference?
I can't say them in this podcast just because I'm still building them. But it's a lot of the things that I've just kind of I'm working on kind of behind the scenes that I've just had I've had a wealth of ideas of things that I want to maybe create in this next season of life. Let me just put it that way. And I have just wrestled with, I guess, giving myself permission to say, actually go do it. Mm-hmm. And so this one point kind of spoke to me a little bit of going, because I think one thing he said was that power comes from clarity. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes having like some mental image in your mind of, well, this is what I hope it's like in 10 years is not really clarity, and it doesn't necessarily lead to power. Mm-hmm. I think clarity is, I want this, and I'm going to build this, or I'm going to go after it, like something specific. For me, it was more of the recognizing that I need to take control. I guess the thing that I kind of take away from it, that I just hope maybe if anybody is watching or listening, either we're a product of the world around us, or we create what we want to be.
Yep.
Like, I'm really figuring out for myself and my future, it comes down to one or two things. And I think I'm going to say a lot of people, and I think I'm going to say the majority of people, that we feel like whatever path we have been on, and again, as you get a little bit older and you almost kind of feel like, maybe some choices that were made when you're in your late teens, your 20s, they've kind of, landed you in this career, and now you got responsibilities, and now you got this, and you got family, you got kids, and you got that, and now I have to be in the moment, and I have to do what I'm doing, and you almost feel like your path is set, your trajectory is already determined. Mm-hmm. And I'm coming to this kind of like realization that the trajectory of my life will either be determined by external factors or by kind of almost just this idea of like, well, this is the life I have. Mm-hmm. It's either the life you have or the life you want.
Right.
And so I think what kind of like hit me with that whole what I want is, and again, I'm not saying I have a bad life. I love my life. I'm doing what I want to do. Mm-hmm. But there's some things that I just have felt like, man, I want to maybe explore.
Yeah.
Not leaving the church, not going someplace else, not quitting. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about ancillary things that God has just kind of, I've had kind of in my heart. And it's like, I'm just feeling like more and more that these things were just giving me, I guess, the confidence and the freedom to kind of say, what I want is this. Okay, Tim, then build that and do it.
I love it.
Otherwise, I'm just saying we'll all go through life, and you trust me, you get to your 30s, you get to your 40s, and you'll feel like your path is already set. Mm-hmm. Like, well, I just have to keep doing this until, and I'm kind of feeling a little bit more, I don't know, a little feisty and going, no, my path is yet to be determined. And I want to ask the question, what I want is, or answer the question, what I want is,
Yep. ...
And so I just kind of like, okay, I'm going to take that and I'm going to say, this is what, so I'm actually been, even since then, I'm still trying to narrow this kind of scope, and I'm trying to define for myself what I want for this next season of life, next 10 years of life. I'm trying to determine what I want to build, whether it's in this church and through the ministry or it's outside of the ministry, things I want to do. I'm trying to like answer that question right now.
Yep.
What I want to build. And then I want to move toward it.
I love it. Well, you got some amazing things coming your way, and you got some amazing things you're building, and as your friend and your, I was going to say your servant.
That does not sound right.
I'm very excited for you. I was listening to a message from, the conference we went to was Brendan and Erwin gave a message Sunday. And I've heard him talk about this before, but for some reason it hit me in a new way. The whole idea of like hope is in the future.
I listened to it.
The whole idea again of...
He stole my series idea. I just want to let everybody know that. I had to tell him at the table.
Yeah, did you?
Then he started. I said, just so you know, I want to note. I was like, I got the date on here.
Yeah.
I actually had this exact same idea.
Yeah.
There's similarities, his way of doing it versus what I had, but it's the exact same concept. And I told you about this series, and Zach, like a year ago, and he's doing it now. I'm like,
that's
throw it
funny.
away.
What did he say?
No, nothing. He was just laughing, and
But he said the thing
about hope.
Yeah, it's easier to
hold on to what you have.
Well, it's easier to have confidence in what you have than what you hope for.
Yeah.
And it's just so true. And just on a spiritual level, there's this really obscure verse that I've thought about over the last month. I read it, and for some reason, it just almost made me emotional. Like, it just, I don't know why I think it's, I didn't, and I wrote it down in my journal, but I didn't even write it down. I think it's 2 Chronicles. But Amaziah, it's a whole complicated situation. You would know it, but gave money that wasn't supposed to give away, gave things to, and so he's talking to the prophet, and
is this the time when he let people see everything in the treasury?
No, not Hezekiah, Amaziah.
Oh, Amaziah.
Amaziah.
Okay, I didn't hear you.
So it's even more obscure.
Okay.
But anyways, here's the verse. It says, "Then Amaziah said to the man of God," because the prophet said, well, basically, here's all the things that is going to happen now. Here's all that we can do. And it was good. It was good things. But it says, "Then Amaziah said to the man of God," you can tell he has regret, "What should I do about the 7,500 pounds of silver I already gave to Israel's division?" And the man of God replied, "Oh, the Lord is able to give you much more than this." And I don't know why, but just that thought of like, in the moments of regret of, but look how much I've already lost.
Yeah.
And look what I've already done.
Look how much time I've already wasted.
Yes. But just that simple reply from the prophet, oh, God can give you way more than that. And I don't know why I've just been circling back to that. That whatever you feel like you've lost, what if you actually believe God can give you more?
You got to stop telling the old stories. You got to dump the old stories.
Yeah.
Right? And actually believe that there's more ahead.
Yeah.
And so it's, I don't know, it's good. I mean, the event, like I said, there was, even in all the stuff that he shared, and I wrote down a ton of notes, I think probably that was one of my biggest takeaways, was just almost, and that's part of what he does, but it's the motivation, the inspiration to say, don't let your fears, don't let these old stories that you go back to, as real as they were,
right,
they're in your past, not in your future.
Yep.
That doesn't mean it's going to happen again. I want to learn from my past.
Right.
But if you don't let go of the old story, you'll be stuck in your past.
Yep.
And the only way to be able to move forward is to, again, start asking the question or answering the statement, what I want is.
Well, I re-picked up, and I do this once a year just to read a few pages because I love it so much, but Donald Miller, 1,000,000 Miles in 1,000 Years.
Yeah, it's a good book.
And it's what he learned while editing his own life. And there's this really short chapter, it's like a page long, and he's sitting down to cereal with his friend Jordan. And he's like, Jordan's like, "What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "I don't feel like I'm living, like I'm telling a good story." He's like, "Everybody thinks you tell good stories. People buy your books all the time." He goes, No. Like with my life, like I know how to tell good stories, but I'm not living a good story.
Yeah.
And he said, and his friend Jordan looked up from his cereal and goes, "You're right, you're not." And he's like, "So what do I do?" And he goes, "You're a writer. You know what to do. Write a new page." It's that whole idea of you can stop living in your old stories the moment you start writing a new chapter. And you have the power to create a new chapter.
I love it. That's good. So good.
Anyways, it was a good time.
Yeah.
Good quick convo, appetizer for your Friday.
Yeah.
And we hope your week is going great. And we have Inspire Conference this weekend. This Saturday is going to be super special. Miss Lisa Harper, traveling all the way from where she is.
Nashville.
And Nashville. And then staying over to speak on Sunday.
Yeah,
It's going to be really special. But all right, until next time, we will see you next week.
Hey guys, it's Russ. Thanks so much for listening. We really believe if we can get around tables instead of behind screens, if we can talk to each other instead of at each other, we can make the world better. To help us do that, here are a few things you can do to help. First, if you haven't yet, leave a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe on YouTube. This helps more than you know. Also, if you have been impacted by the community out of which this podcast comes, that's X Church. Maybe you're local or you've been touched by the messages and impact across the country, even the world. I want to encourage you to support this work. A powerful life principle is to invest in the people and places that invest in you. And so I want to invite you to do that right now by going to thex.church/give. You can give a one-time small gift, a sacrificial gift, or even become a recurring partner. Together, let's keep elevating the conversation, thinking higher, loving deeper, and making the world better. Cheers.